Hello and welcome to S30TV. I'm Laura Lee Cascanet.
And I'm Jesse Chiquetta.
Today's theme is youth engagement in politics. There are many obstacles for young voters, including staying educated. According to a recent Toronto Star survey, young people were twice as unlikely to vote in the last provincial election because they didn't feel that they knew enough to make an informed decision. We'll be talking to a former mayoral candidate from Toronto who ran against both Doug Ford and John Tory. We'll also hear from Oakville's Mayor Rob Burton.
But first, our reporter Cole Shelton is live at Trafalgar with Sheridan's president, Janet Morrison, to talk about her view on the role of politics in a young person's life.
Cool. Thanks. So just first off, Janet, how does education contribute towards being an engaged citizen?
Oh, well, I think it's really difficult to be engaged if you're not informed. And so I think a lot about the importance of being an educated person, and that happens through formal schooling and through lived experience. And I think you bring that to being engaged as a citizen in a democracy.
And what are you doing to encourage Sheridan students to vote in the next federal election?
You know what, that's a good question. I don't know that I have been as conscious as I maybe need to be or will be over time. I think ensuring that there are avenues and program opportunities for students to think about the issues that matter to them. So, always financial aid, which tends to be provincial, but at the federal level, access to post-secondary, jobs, economic development, climate change, sustainability. We know that those things matter to students, and so how do you create opportunities for students to engage with those issues so that they're informed and then compelled to vote?
So then, in the past election at Sheridan, only 7% of students voted. Why do you think so many students chose not to vote?
Yeah, you know what, so, the student union matters, and I think part of my obligation, every leader's obligation on campus, is to help students understand why it matters. So I think people don't vote when they don't see the importance of it, or they don't see the reward, or the so what. And so I think working with student leaders, with the student union, with faculty and staff that student trusts, we have to continually emphasize that having students at the table through their student union, through their government, who is charged with advocating for them and their issues of choice, I think that's really important. But people vote when they feel like what they do matters.
And so why do you think politics should matter to today's youth?
You know what, so I believe that, being in college, being in university changes people. I think it changes individuals, it changes families, it changes communities. So, educated people will change the world. And so being involved and engaged in a democracy, whether that's through politics or through leadership, it matters. And so the students at Sheridan now are the future of not just Canada, but they hold in their hands the future of the planet. That's really important. People got to be engaged.
And a lot of people say their vote doesn't matter. How do you think you can change that perception?
Well, you know what, it absolutely does matter. And if you read the paper, if you're conversant with journalism and with media, then I think people will acknowledge that being invested, being involved, sharing your point of view, ensuring that your voice is heard is important. If you've got opinions about where the city you live in, or the province you live in, the country that you live in, if you've got opinions about what needs to happen or what's most important or what direction, policy or otherwise, we should be pursuing, you got to step up, you got to lean in, because otherwise you really can't complain about a direction that you don't support.
And then how are politics and being an engaged citizen related?
You know what? So I think being engaged, so politics for me is about a democracy. And in a democracy, we collectively decide what our values are and how those values are going to be lived. And so I think earning an education, understanding context, learning to think critically, to weigh and balance evidence and competing opinions, thinking about inclusivity and equity, all of that goes into not just good policy, but good legislation, regulation that supports that legislation. It charts a direction, and we all own that.
And then as the president, so the elections coming up, do you think you have to go out more and get, like, to really talk to the students about and tell them why it is important?
For the federal election or the student union election?
Either or.
Either or. You know what? I hope everything I do and everything I model, you know, I pride myself on being a leader. Part of being a leader is stepping up, sharing your voice, you know, contributing your opinion. And so I hope that I model that every day. I hope every leader on campus does that every day.
Well, that's all we have for you, Janet. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Back to the studio.
Thanks, Cole. Earlier today, I got the chance to speak with Oakville Mayor Rob Burton about why he thinks young people aren't voting. Joining me today, Rob.
Good to be here.
So how do you get college students to go out and vote?
If anybody knew that, college students would get out and vote. My 3 kids all voted as soon as they could, and my wife and I have always voted. Maybe it's what your parents do. You know, most adults pretty much don't vote either. So, you know, should we be picking on college students for not voting? Maybe there's something bigger going on.
How do you change the typical mindset of my one vote won't make a difference?
You know, I don't know how to change that. I know that sometimes when there's a close election, it really becomes obvious that a single vote can make a difference. There was a vote for mayor in Oakville that was decided in the 50s by 1 vote. And the mayor who lost then won the next election. My first run for mayor, I lost by 12 votes on election night. And the first recount, I lost by 15. The next recount, I lost by 18. The next recount, I lost by 28. And I said, we got to stop the recounts, because if we keep going, I'll lose in a landslide, whatever the reverse of a landslide is. So there was an election where, you know, every vote seemed to count.
Why is it important for youth to be involved in politics?
I don't think it's important for anybody to be involved in politics unless you care about the outcome. So if you want something to happen, that's the only way in our system you can make it happen, and you should get involved. And if you don't care how things turn out, then, you know, you don't care. By definition, you don't need to. I don't believe that you should force people to vote. I believe that when it matters to people, they'll show up.
Oakville voting turnout was at 37%. What do you think needs to happen for more people to go out and vote?
Well, I can tell you that the first time I ran, the voter turnout was 30%. And the second time I ran, the voter turnout was 35%. The third time I ran, the voter turnout was 40%. And this last time it was 37%. And before I ran, it was like 25. So there's been a trend in an upward direction if you see what I'm trying to show with those outcomes.
Well, Rob, thanks for coming in and joining me today.
Good chatting with you.
Morgan Baskin is a 4th-year liberal arts and science student studying urban planning at Quest University in British Columbia. But in 2014, she ran for mayor of Toronto to make a point about why young people are not engaged in politics. I spoke with her earlier. Hi, Morgan. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So why do you think that young people tend to not care about politics?
I think that it's hard to care about something that seems like it's excluding you. When politicians don't talk about issues that matter to young people, when politicians don't reach out specifically to young people, there's a really interesting Samara Canada study which really looks at how little young people get contacted by politicians. I think it's incredibly difficult to care about something that doesn't seem like it cares about you at all, especially when you have a lot going on.
And how do we change this?
I think that politicians need to start seeing young people as a real voter base and actively trying to solicit their votes in a meaningful way.
Now, you ran for mayor of Toronto when you were 18. So why do you think it's so important for youth to get involved in politics?
I think it's so crucial because these are kind of the important decisions that govern pretty much every aspect of our lives. from like the moment you flick the lights on in the morning to like driving on the street or taking public transit. Like all of those things are government decisions that manage those aspects of our lives, and they're so important. But also kind of long term, we're the up and coming tax base. So the things that are happening right now are things that like our taxes will be paying for in the future. And I think it's important that we pay attention and are involved.
Yeah, so what motivated you to actually run for mayor?
I was really mad. It was a very specific time in Toronto politics where it was very easy to be mad. And I thought it was important that I put my money where my mouth was. I didn't want to just complain. I wanted to kind of actively do something and really start a conversation about what it means to have, what young people need in an election and like what young people need from their governments. I think young people are facing so many really overwhelming and intense issues, and it's so important that the government is there to support those young people, and that's just not happening at the scale that it should be right now.
So what is your perspective about running for politics now?
That is a very complicated question. The 2014 election like definitely opened a lot of doors for me, and was really positive in many ways, but was also, you know, in any election, you see the best of humanity and you see some of the worst pieces. And I don't want to lie and say that like the harassment that I received or the amount of kind of like constant work and effort that I put in like definitely left me burnt out, and was incredibly difficult. That said, I'm incredibly grateful for the experience, but I am unlikely to run for political office again in the near future.
Well, thank you, Morgan, so much for speaking with us today.
Of course.
From the U.S. college cheating scandal to the long-awaited release of a classic Disney trailer, the internet is buzzing this week. Take a look at what's trending.
There's a cave of wonders. Bring me the lamp.
I'm so scared. All right, what do you guys want to know?
In this instance, I wanted to recreate the pupil dilating, blood pressure pumping, borderline illegal nature of the Rib Witch. And I gotta say, in that spirit, this is a pretty close approximation.
Before I dive into the CCX, a brief overview. Now, Koenigsegg's first production car was called the CC8, and it came out back in 2002. That was replaced.
When we come back, we'll have the news you should care about, and we'll hear from you why students aren't engaged in politics.
Don't go anywhere, Sheridan.
bensound.com.
Welcome back to S30TV. We're now going to head over to Lauren for the latest news.
Canada is grounding Boeing MAX 8 aircrafts following Sunday's crash in Ethiopia. Federal Transport Minister Marc Garneau made the announcement during a press conference today.
This safety notice restricts commercial passenger flights from any operator of the Boeing 737 MAX 8 or MAX 9 variant aircraft, whether domestic or foreign, from arriving, departing, or overflying Canadian airspace.
The decision to ban the jets from entering Canada's airspace comes on the heels of multiple safety concerns and new data found linking the Ethiopian airline crash and another deadly crash near Indonesia in October. Garneau said this is a safety precaution and it will remain in effect until further notice. President Trump has just announced the U.S. will also be grounding the Boeing 737 MAX 8. Liberal MPs shut down the debate to allow former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould to testify again before the House of Commons Justice Committee. The NDP and Conservatives pushed to have Wilson-Raybould reappear to provide additional details regarding the alleged PMO's involvement in the prosecution of SNC-Lavalin. Opposition members of the committee shouted at their Liberal counterparts, claiming this is a cover-up. The committee is reconvening next week with closed-door meetings. Premier Doug Ford announced that job cuts will be coming in the local health integration networks. Management levels jobs like CEO, presidents, and vice presidents will be the ones affected. Those working on the front lines will be protected, Ford says. The announcement comes as the result of a planned merger of 20 provincial health agencies into one. The Ontario Medical Regulator will not investigate complaints regarding a Toronto doctor's push for stricter gun laws. Dr. Najma Ahmed is the founder of Canadian Doctors for Protection from Guns, which is fighting for a national ban on gun ownership. The Canadian Coalition of Firearm Rights urged their members to push back against Ahmed's push for a ban. Ontario schools will become no-phone zones. The Ford government has introduced a new policy beginning in September. Cell phones will not be allowed during instructional time. Educational Minister Lisa Thompson says the ban will help students focus on learning. Some education experts disagree with the policy. This doesn't apply to colleges and universities. A 3-story Nigerian building on the island of Lagos has collapsed and killed at least 10 people today. More than 100 students were on the top floor at the time of the collapse. Officials say that around 40 children have made it out alive and many more are still trapped. 10 people are dead after a school shooting in Brazil. 6 students and 2 school officials were killed and more than 10 people were injured. According to police, 2 armed adolescent males entered the school in the town of Suzano earlier this morning. Both shooters later committed suicide. The motive is unknown. Paul Manafort has received an additional sentence of 43 months on top of the 4-year sentence he got last week in Virginia. During his statement, he apologized for his actions, saying, quote, "I accept responsibility for the acts that have caused me to be here today." Today's sentence was for the conspiracy against the U.S. and conspiracy to obstruct justice for attempting to tamper with witnesses. Manafort could see an early release if he has good behavior. The European Union is planning to introduce travel restrictions that will apply to visiting Canadians. The new rules include having to fill out specialized paperwork and paying a fee. The EU believes that this will identify any risks posed by visitors while making border checks easier for everyone. The restrictions will be implemented in January 2021. The Earth is sick and climate change is getting worse, but there still may be hope. A new UN environmental report indicates that changes to how the world eats, buys things, gets its energies, and handles its waste could fix the problems. Time is running out to reverse the damages, but scientists say there's every reason to be hopeful. Now it's time for Wagwan. This week I went to the Davis campus to find out what students think of youth and politics. Why do you think young people should have a voice in politics?
The reason why I think young people should have a voice in politics is that because young people also want their involvement in the politics because they might be the one who might be get advantage from the decisions the politics make. because they definitely have the right to vote, and they will choose the right politician, and they will know what's going on in politics, so they can also have their view on the politics, because they are young minds and they have new ideas to share with the things going on. So they should definitely have insight about the politics, what's going on, so they can give their own view, and then make even if they have come up with the idea, they can share that idea with someone and then make a change which is better for everyone.
Well, I believe that you should also have a voice in politics, because personally I'm also 18. I'm also considered as one of the youth, because we are one of the generations that are going into the society right now. And even though we are the youth, we actually have a lot of good ideas that maybe the other people from other generations might not be able to generate. So having us in politics will not only be able to give out a lot of good opinions, and because we're going to be the ones who are going into the society, so it's very important that you guys should be taking in our ideas, as that will be a society that we will be soon living in.
They have voice in politics because they think more about their country, and they want to improve them, and young people are the future of the country, so they think more technologically and more for more good things, for more development and stuff. So maybe.
Why do you think students have political power?
I know that at Sheridan ourselves, we do have the Sheridan SSU, which is a place where students are speaking for the students, and we're voting for what the students want. And because it is a society that we are living in, and because we are all a part of the society, it's very important that we get a right of what we should do, and we're not just living under the rights of what other people want and living under what other people want us to do.
Basically, I think they have political power because they can change something. They have a potential to change the things. They can motivate their younger brothers and sisters. They can give them knowledge about politics and stuff. So I think they have knowledge and potential to change everything. So maybe that's why.
Once they are 18-year-olds, once they get the right to vote, the reason they have the power is that because they have freedom to share their own views. They have freedom to give their own insight, give their own perspective in politics. And the one more thing to add is that if you are heard somewhere, if you have the right to be heard, and then someone implies on what you suggest them, that means that you have power. Then you can make a change in the society. If someone doesn't give you any rights to do, then there's no point of voting and all that stuff. So if you can make a change in the society, that means you have power.
After the break, we'll have your entertainment and sports update.
Stay tuned.
bensound.com. 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 bensound.com.
Welcome back to S30TV.
Now let's head over to Shane for your entertainment update.
It's time to drift into a whole new world. The new trailer for Aladdin has been released, and here's a sneak peek of what to expect in the Disney live-action movie.
You stumbled upon an opportunity. I can make you rich. Rich enough to impress a princess. What would I have to do? There's a cave of wonders. Bring me the lamp.
Aladdin hits theaters this May. Getting straight A's, giving 0 F's. The movie, Booksmart, takes us on a journey into a stress of a student keeping up academically while sacrificing her social life at school, and then suddenly realizing she hasn't had a lit experience all year. Take a look.
We didn't party because we wanted to focus on school and get into good colleges, and it worked. But the irresponsible people who partied also got into those colleges.
I'm incredible at hand jobs, but I also got a 1560 on the SATs.
I can't wait. Booksmart hits theaters near you Victoria Day weekend. Comic-Con is coming to Toronto. This weekend, the Metro Toronto Convention Center is the place to be if you love anime, comics, and sci-fi. There will be a special appearance from Ron Perlman, star of the original Hellboy movies, as well as Don Fogler, who plays the character Luke in The Walking Dead. Tickets start at $20. The 49th Annual Canadian Juno Awards are this Sunday. 12-time award winner Sarah McLachlan will be hosting and performing. Travis Scott, Astroworld, will be facing Cardi B's Invasion of Privacy once again for the International Album of the Year. Other nominees include Shawn Mendes and The Weeknd for the Single of the Year. The show starts at 8 p.m. and can be seen on CBC. Now, we'll head over to Jesse for a look at sports.
Thanks, Shane. The Sheridan Bruins just arrived in British Columbia for the CCAA's Men's Basketball Championship. The Bruins are coming off of winning the OCAA Championships on March 2nd against Humber to qualify for the tournament. Sheridan's first game will be tomorrow against Nomads de Montmorency, who won CCAA National Championship in 2017. The Toronto Maple Leafs are back in action tonight when they host Patrick Kane in the Chicago Blackhawks. The Leafs are looking to get back into the win column after losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning 6-2 on Monday. The Leafs remain third in the division with just 13 games left in the season. Carey Price is now the all-time wins leader in Montreal Canadiens history. Price picked up win number 315 last night when Price's 20 saves backed the Canadiens to a 3-1 win over the Detroit Red Wings. Price broke Jacques Plante's record of 314 wins that has stayed intact since 1963. NFL's free agency opens today at 4 p.m., but already multiple big moves have been made. The Cleveland Browns acquired all-star receiver Odell Beckham Jr. from the New York Giants. Meanwhile, star running back Le'Veon Bell has agreed to a 4-year contract with the New York Jets. The Toronto Blue Jays are cutting down costs at the concession stand. The executive vice president of business operations has announced each level of the stadium will have a stand where everything is $5, which includes 12-ounce beers. The Jays say they are trying to give the fans more value when they come to the ballpark. The Toronto Blue Jays have announced right-hander Marcus Stroman will be the opening day starter. This will be Stroman's second time being the opening day starter, with the first coming back in 2016. The Jays' season kicks off on March 28th in Toronto against the Detroit Tigers. And now for the weather. Every week, we'll be looking out for someone like you to feature as our weather host. This week, it's Shane Van Velsman from the Industrial Design Program.
Hi, my name is Shane Van Velzen. I'm from the Industrial Design Program. Today's forecast is going to be a high of 5 and a low of +2. There's a 40% chance of rain today, and this is going to be your 5-day forecast. Tomorrow will finally hit double digits as temperatures will rise to 12 degrees. It will be a rainy day. Friday we'll see some sun and a temperature of 9 degrees. The weekend will be a bit cooler with a mix of sun and clouds. Saturday will be 1 degree, while Sunday will be 2 degrees. Monday temperatures will stay around 2 degrees with mainly sunny skies. I'm Shane Van Velzen, and that's all for the weather. Now back to you.
Today's Meme of the Week is dedicated to voting. 2019 is the federal election year, and it's important that every Canadian stays informed and ultimately exercises their right to vote. I don't know who you are, I don't know what you want, but if you aren't registered to vote, I will find you and I will register for you. That's it for today's show. Thanks for tuning in, Sheridan.
We'll see you again next week for a show all about student entrepreneurs.